I feel like the Lawrence O'Donnell thing was great, dude. He went to town, bro. Here it is. The last word, very feisty. You could tell he was pissed, and understandably so. Because Trump gets this enabling, glad-handing behavior consistently. They're consistently pressuring Democratic candidates to perform at a high level, and all Trump has to do is fucking show up. And there's never any pushback. There's never any follow-ups. There's never anyone who calls him out in the moment for his lies. Like, none of it. There's no challenge offered whatsoever. None. And it's hugely problematic.
Well, it was 2016 all over again today. It would be hard to find a sentence in what Donald Trump said today that did not include at least one lie. Some of the networks tried to play catch-up with fact-checking after Donald Trump finished
He's
speaking,
not even
but
joking.
That, of course, is way
That's what's so
too
problematic
late and utterly useless. No network even attempted to fact-check every lie Donald Trump told. Every network has the capacity to run a live scroll at the side of the screen, fact-checking
in
many
real time
of Donald Trump's lies. Not all of them, that would be impossible, but many of them as he speaks.
Right, because we literally know in every rally there's going to be a couple of them in there that you know are coming. You know he's going to talk about Democrats wanting to kick Roe v. Wade.
They wanted to get rid of Roe v. Wade, and that's Democrats, Republicans, and independents, and everybody.
He's going to talk about aborting fully grown live babies.
Democrats are really the radical ones on this because they're allowed to do abortion on the 8th and 9th month and even after birth.
He's going to talk about 20 million immigrants, which is a lie.
20 million people came over the border during the Biden-Harris administration. 20 million people.
He's going to talk about the rampant crime wave, which hasn't happened. We just know he's going to talk about Kamala Harris being low intelligence. There are just so many. There's probably at least 100 lies they could have preemptively fact-checked.
For example, when Donald Trump said, quote, Kamala Harris is not smart enough to do a news conference, the networks could have simply put on the side of the screen, Kamala Harris is a graduate of Howard University and University of California Hastings College of Law.
Absolutely. And Kamala Harris passed the California bar exam, which is the hardest bar exam in the entire country. And she was the attorney general of the state of California, the fifth largest economy in the world.
Of course, Donald Trump proved once again today that he is not smart enough to do a news conference by saying something that was provably false in every response he gave to every single question. Most of those were knowing lies by Donald Trump. But many of the falsehoods Donald Trump spread today in his responses came from that vast well of stupidity that takes up most of his brain. The stupidest person who has ever won a nomination for president stood there in front of those reporters and said his opponent isn't smart enough to do what he was failing at right in front of those reporters. And
you know what? And the reporters didn't say shit, bro. That's the problem. Like when he said Kamala Harris isn't smart enough to do a news conference, the reporters didn't fucking push back on that shit. Trump got to stand there and lie all day on live television, on every network. He got broadcast nothing but lies, and nobody fucking checked him in the moment. None of those reporters pushed back on it. And the entire news media just jerked off a lying and dishonest, sexual abusing convicted felon. There you go, man. It is 2016 all over again.
The same mistakes are being made. I have never seen an industry slower at learning from its own stupid mistakes than the American news business.
Dude, he is heated.
And you cannot expect them in the next 89 days to figure out what they haven't been able to figure out in 9 years, how to cover a Trump for president campaign. One of the Harris-Walz campaign slogans now is, "We're not going back." But we just went back today. We went back 9 years in the press coverage of the campaign, the media coverage. Donald Trump gets credit from the people he lied to today for lying to them. They appreciate it.
Think about that. They have this beef of like, oh, Kamala Harris hasn't appeared before the press. She's out there campaigning because obviously the voters are how she's going to win the election, not by having an interview with fucking Jake Tapper. Like, that's not going to fucking help. They're like, she needs to come before the press. And then Trump shows up and does nothing but ramble and lie and say the craziest shit. And they're just like, oh, yeah, at least he showed up. Good job, Trumpy.
Reporters understandably and incorrectly believe that the most important thing a candidate can do is answer their questions. But they don't know what an answer actually is. Words spoken after their question marks are not necessarily answers and are never answers when they come from Donald Trump. And some of the tinier minds in the news media continue to give credit to Donald Trump for standing up and lying in response to every single question they ask. A lie is not an answer. Donald Trump never answers reporters' questions.
Dude,
never.
He didn't answer a single question yesterday.
You that Donald Trump has answered reporters' questions and Kamala Harris hasn't is lying to you. And they're too stupid to know that they're lying to you.
Dude.
Because they don't know what an answer is.
Savage.
Donald Trump answered no questions today.
The point he's making is valid. Donald Trump will respond. He will talk for 5 minutes after they ask him the question. But at the end of that 5 minutes, he will not have given them an answer to what they asked. Not even close. Not even close.
He stood up there in a room where he made sure the reporters' questions could not be heard by the TV audience. And so when he spoke, the TV audience had no idea what the question was. Most of the questions were terrible. The silliest possible questions you could ask.
Why did he have the press conference in a room where you can't hear anybody? But there it is. Because then there is no question. Oh my God. It's like the perfect setup. We'll have a press conference in a room where you can't hear the question, and then Trumpy can just sit up there and f*** off the American public the whole time. Crazy.
What a waste of a moment with a convicted felon former president to ask questions like that. Here's one question. Mr. President, can you tell us a bit more about your upcoming interview with Elon Musk? That was an actual question to Donald Trump today.
Yeah, who cares? Like, what does that have to do with the American people? Full-throated.
Question. What do you think of Kamala Harris not picking Josh Shapiro as her VP? Most of the questions were wasted questions like that. And so Donald Trump could just ramble about anything that came to mind, including lying, of course, about the size of his crowds. And the biggest lie he now tells about the size of his crowds is the lie about which of his crowds was his biggest crowd. He now claims that the crowd that gathered to hear him try to overthrow the presidential election on January 6th was his biggest crowd ever. It wasn't. Investigations have estimated that that crowd was about 53,000 people. Today, Donald Trump said that his January 6th speech attracted a bigger crowd than Martin Luther King Jr.'s I Have a Dream speech in Washington in 1963, the most famous speech ever.
That speech with MLK was like five times that. It was like 250 grand, 300 grand.
In Washington by someone who was not president of the United States. Martin Luther King's crowd was 5 times the size of Donald Trump's crowd on January 6th. I know it can sound almost hideous that I am fact-checking Donald Trump's crowd size lies today, but that's the way Donald Trump wants it to feel. He has been telling crowd size lies for 9 years, and he wants to wear the news media down to the point where they just accept it. And he has won because no one in that room fought him on that in any way today or on anything else. They did not fight a single lie that he told in that room today. It was the tamest collection of reporters asking questions that you could ever see. How can you be so tame and timid in the presence of Donald Trump when you do this?
Why are you confusing the names of world leaders?
Thank you, everyone. Thank you very much. I did not share classified information. I did not share it.
With your ghostwriter?
With my ghostwriter, I did not. Guarantee you did not.
But the special counsel said in the
no,
report
he
that
did not say that.
Okay.
He did not say that.
But Mr. President, one of the...
Let me answer your question.
Dude, look at that, though. That's really interesting. They're like on his ass. All of them. Just piling on the man.
The fact of the matter is, what I didn't want repeated, I didn't want him to know, and I didn't read it to him, was I had written a long memorandum to President Obama why we should not be in Afghanistan. And I was of this multiple pages. And so what I was referring to, I said classified. I should have said should be private, because it was a contact between the president and the vice president as to what was going on. That's what it is referring to. It was not classified information in that document. That was not classified.
Donald Trump did not hear that sound today.
Yeah.
He did not hear that screaming. If Donald Trump gets back in the White House, he will never hear that sound from those people. Never.
That's pretty shitty.
If Vice President Harris stands in front of those same reporters, do you think they will be as tame?
No, they will
reserved
fucking light her up
as they were with Donald Trump today? Not one of them dared to yell at Donald Trump today. Not one of them. Not one of them dared to yell, "You're not answering the question." So the special treatment Donald Trump gets from the Supreme Court and elsewhere extends.
Dude, we should go back and look at Obama. Remember how they used to treat Obama? They would get combative with him. Remember that?
And harmfully, and always has, to much of the press corps. Here's what happened when Donald Trump was asked a good question by NBC's Garrett Haake. Question: would you direct the FDA to revoke access to mifepristone? Here is what
The
Donald
yes
Trump
or no
said
question.
to that yes or no question, which no matter how many times you read this answer, is not an answer. Trump. Sure, you could do things that would supplement absolutely. And those things are pretty open and humane. But you have to be able to have a vote. And all I want to do is give everybody a vote. And the votes are taking place right now as we speak. But it's a very good, there are many things on a humane basis that you can do outside of that. But you also have to give a vote.
You also have to give a vote, and the people are going to have to decide.
Are going to have to decide. The words Donald Trump spoke to those reporters in response to that clear, simple, and important yes or no question were an insult to everyone in that room, and they took the insult. Nothing in those words was an answer. Nothing.
Dude.
Donald Trump
didn't even make any sense.
Questions today. Don't let anyone tell you that lie that Donald Trump answered questions. He did not. He never does. Anyone who tells you that Donald Trump answered reporters' questions is lying to you. And anyone who tells you that is not smart enough to know what an answer is. Donald Trump is not smart enough to answer questions. Anyone who then tells you that Kamala Harris has to answer questions from reporters because Donald Trump already answered questions from reporters is lying to themselves and to you, and you must not allow them to do it. Please crush them on social media when they do it, because they will do it.
There you go, man. I love this guy.